Welcome to my LinkedIn event, How to Pass CFP and Advanced Finance Exams First Time. It's good to see so many of you. We've got advisors here from all over the world, some from America I see, some from India and other places besides, and Dubai there I see. Welcome wherever you are. Most of us haven't met before, although I do see some friends here, curious to see what I'm up to and maybe checking out the LinkedIn process too. Also, I see some of my clients have joined us. Some still working through their exams, passing each first time now they know how to. And some clients who have already passed the exams they need to pass, but keen to see now they've succeeded themselves and have developed their own companies, how they can best recommend to their employees my surefire system to simply get the exam challenge out of the way so they can concentrate on serving their clients and growing the business together. Welcome to you all. I love helping advisors pass their exams first time, and I want you to know that that's possible for you too. I realise your exams can often be a right pain in the neck, and I don't want you to suffer. You don't need to suffer, so I'm really pleased you're here with me. Thank you. Our time is precious, and this webinar needs to be worth your putting everything else aside to attend it, so I'll do my best for you. There's a lot I'd like to cover, and we've only got 30 minutes, so I'll bash on. If you think of any questions, put them in the chat box and I'll go through them at the end. Why am I doing this? Because I can. My name is Lisette Offley and I'm a memory and mindset coach with loads of world-class training, plenty of experience and bags of success. Having already spent 20 years in the classroom and the last 17 running my own business, I love helping people break through to a higher level of achievement and effectiveness, and I'm good at what I do. But I know nothing about financial services. Does that surprise you? It's simply not my thing. And in any case, you don't need yet another technical trainer. You've got great ones and not so great ones coming out of your ears already. What you need is someone to show you how to remember what they tell you, how to remember what you learn from textbooks, videos, audios, and all the other sources of learning we have these days. And that's where I come in. You'll hear me talk about Genius Material in this webinar. It's through my Genius Material programs that I help financial advisors pass their exams. Here's what I've promised you'd get from this webinar. Why you forget nearly everything you learn, how other financial advisors are keeping you from succeeding, what to do so you pass every exam first time, and of course by doing less work, not more. I'll show you what you've been doing wrong and why it doesn't work, and I'll show you exactly what to do instead to learn quickly and efficiently so that you pass exams whatever the subject. First time, every time. With a score of 80% to get your qualifications in the fastest time possible and retain the information forever so that you become increasingly knowledgeable and race ahead in your career and income. My advisors are going on to double, triple, and in some cases even quadruple their incomes and future-proofing themselves against whatever life throws at them. If that sounds useful, and especially if it sounds highly unlikely, then you really need to stick around to the end and give me a chance to prove to you that I know what I'm talking about, because I know you could be winning too. I know you're up against it. There's so little time and so much to do. You're already flat out at work and in demand at home. And now you're trying to find time to study too. Studying is hard work. You can't get someone else to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. And there's no getting around that. But if you're going about it the wrong way, then it's going to be taking you much longer than it needs to. And then if you're having to resit each exam and learn all that stuff all over again, well, wouldn't it be better to find out exactly what to do and what not to do so that you make the most efficient use of your time and effort? And if you're someone who kind of scrapes by on exams, wouldn't it be nice to glide through them with more ease, more leisure time, higher marks, and remember what you've learnt? But I bet that sounds easier said than done, because there's a problem. Why do so many advisors struggle with exams? After all, they're familiar with the subject, aren't they? Aren't they using this information every day in their jobs? And they're not daft. So what's the problem? Part of the problem is doing the same thing over and over. If that's working for you, it's great. If not, it's not. But doing the same thing over and over again, even when it's not working, is what most of us do. Most of us don't think about a study strategy. Instead, we do what we know. But unfortunately, when we keep doing the same old thing and keep getting the same old results, most of us start building a less than charitable attitude towards ourselves, towards the exam, the examiner, the profession, our career prospects, and that's damaging to our confidence and self-esteem. Instead of simply blaming the strategy we're using, we start believing that there must be something wrong with us. Feeling as though there's something wrong with us isn't the most constructive mindset. It's the one that's most likely to eventually have you stop trying and give up altogether. So for study and exam success, part of the job you need to do is to recognize that all those negative feelings are the inevitable result of an unsuccessful strategy. You know that you can change a strategy, then you can change your results. And changing your results will change how you feel about yourself. If you don't get on top of this, you'll end up stopping yourself. But you're not the only one stopping you. Other advisors are too. How? By perpetuating the myth that it's going to take several goes to pass each exam. When you think about it, it certainly looks that way. The evidence points in that direction. Look around and count how many people you know for whom that certainly seems true. But the problem is, with that attitude, nothing changes. No one's going to be looking for an alternative. They're not going to be looking for a solution to a problem that appears as fixed, unchangeable, as fact. And so it really does become a self-fulfilling prophecy, which keeps the problem in place. It's also a convenience. It's a great excuse for not passing the exams, and at least it feels as though you're all in it together. How would other advisors feel if you proved to them that it's not true, at least not for you? Then would they ask the question, is there a better way of doing this? And might that then lead to their own success? Oh, and don't let me even mention the exam providers. How are they stopping you succeed? How are they benefiting from allowing the merry-go-round to grind? You know the answer to that. Look, there's something I want you to take away, something I want you to remember. It's not you. When you're dating, that's an expression you don't want to hear, but on this occasion I hope it'll be a bit of a relief to hear it. Why? Because the trouble you've had passing your exams isn't your fault. It's not you. You see, the thing is, human beings are hardwired to forget. Yep, you heard me correctly. That'll be you then. We're born with the very useful skill of forgetting. Let me explain. It's about the way our brains and bodies are constructed and the way they work. Physiologically, our brains and bodies are pretty much identical to the brains and bodies of our ancestors of 10,000 years ago. They haven't evolved any further, at least not yet. 10,000 years is a short time in terms of evolution. So even though our environment has changed so much, the mental and physical equipment we're using to handle it is still ideally suited for living in caves. We'll keep coming back to this because it explains so much. We're supposed to forget. Forgetting is perfectly natural and normal. I know that advisors struggle to pass exams, and I know how frustrating it can be to work hard and still not make progress. Forgetting is part of the exam problem. However, Genius Material will change all that for you. Have a look at this graph. The pink area shows you that after learning nearly 100% of what they've intended to, most people have forgotten the majority of it within 24 hours. Look how much evaporates during the first 10 minutes. Bet that surprises you. And it only gets worse. Look at that steadily declining pink line. The good news is, as shown in the blue area, Genius Material will show you how to make information really stay in your head and gives you the tools to make it easy and fun. So you'll remember 80% and more, even 6 months later and beyond. That's the way to pass exams and become an expert in your field. It doesn't matter what age you are and what work you're doing when you discover the best way to learn. Genius Material has changed the lives of teams working in large corporations as well as individuals from all areas of experience and ambition, such as helicopter pilots, financial services, computer programmers, language students, trainee police, accountants, doctors, all taking professional exams. Also, countless young people have also got the exam passes they've needed to go into their first choice universities and then on to achieve the pass marks they've needed to get the jobs they've wanted. There are hundreds of thousands of people struggling to pass exams, and yet nobody else is offering the same help. Now, where was I? Ah, yes, forgetting. So now you know, physiologically, we are pretty much the same as we were 10,000 years ago when we lived in caves. The automatic, unconscious part of the brain, then as now, helped us to make sense of the world and keep us safe. One of the useful things that it did was to systematically let go of old information, which was likely to be out of date and less useful, in favor of retaining more recent information, more likely to keep us alive and well. I'm sure you can imagine it's an advantage to forget where the herd of deer was seen 2 weeks ago, but instead remember where it was seen last night. Or forgetting where the dangerous predator was yesterday when there's been a more recent sighting today. And indeed, forgetting is still very useful today. How much more important is it to forget where you put your wallet, phone, or car keys last year, but remember where you put them 2 hours ago, or better still, 5 minutes ago? While forgetting older information can be very useful, it's not going to help you pass those pesky exams. In fact, you now know most people forget most of what they've learned within 20 minutes, and 80% or so is forgotten within 2 weeks. In addition, it's reckoned that around 70% of people are not studying according to how their brain prefers to learn. Is it any wonder that so many of us are failing? Forgetting stuff is meant to keep us safe because we're focusing not on out-of-date information, but instead on current intel. Unlike running away from a hungry wild animal, your brain doesn't see passing exams as crucial to your survival. It's just not in the same league. And so maybe the biggest mistake most people make is not realizing what it takes for information to really get into our heads and then stay there. Because memories are a funny old thing. They're often compared with the way a computer works, but that's pretty misleading. When you retrieve information from a computer, you expect to retrieve it looking exactly the same as when you saved it, but our brains aren't as reliable. It explains why you and your friend can have different accounts of what just happened when you were both watching the same event. Each time you recall a memory, you strengthen the neural connections of that memory, making it easier and easier to recall each time you do. Think about any habit or thought pattern that has become easier and easier the more you practice it. Paradoxically, though, unlike retrieving files from the computer, when the memory arrives in the hippocampus, in the brain, it is unstable and changeable. You see, our brains filter information all the time. Since we receive something like 10,000 bits of information a second, the brain, lucky for us, automatically takes care of it, makes sense of it, and makes us aware of only the bits that are essential to our survival, number one, and interest in that moment, number two. And that explains why the husband, Nige, watching the footy on TV is so engrossed that he simply doesn't hear his wife, me, asking him if he wants a cup of tea, nor indeed a smack in the teeth. There are 3 ways our brains filter information. It generalizes, distorts, and deletes it without our being aware of it. That might take you by surprise, but hey, where would we be if our brains didn't generalize? At some point you learnt the concept of chair, the thing you sit on. Because of your brain's generalizing skills, you'll nearly always recognize a chair, no matter what color, shape, size it is, or material it's made from. It distorts. Have you ever mistaken an object for something else? I remember as a kid, and while on holiday in France, a bunch of us had taken to daring each other to poke a snake, apparently asleep in the flower bed. The closer to it we got, however, the clearer the writing on it became. Size 9 to 12, washed separately. That snake turned out to be a discarded sock, and not nearly as dangerous as we first thought. And your brain deletes information too. You must have come across tales of amazing feats of strength, such as the woman who somehow manages to single-handedly lift the back of a car to free her trapped child from under the wheel. A car? Come on, that shouldn't be possible. It's not until later, when the adrenaline has worn off, that the superheroine becomes aware of the impossibility of the task. But if that information hadn't been deleted at the time by the automatic unconscious part of the brain, she would never have taken the life-saving action she did. It's important to know that the brain, yes, yours too, is busy generalizing, distorting, and deleting information all the time on your behalf in order to make sense of the world and keep you safe. That's its job, after all. With Genius Material, you'll be working with the way your brain functions naturally instead of fighting it, because fighting it is what you've been doing, isn't it? And it doesn't work, but you don't need me to tell you that. When we were young, we didn't worry about how to learn, we just got on with it. And excellent learners we were too. You're a great learner. We all are. You wouldn't be where you are already if that weren't true. But no one teaches you how to learn the sort of stuff you get in your textbook. It's not natural to learn from books. We're not physiologically designed for that. Physiologically, we're still optimized for spotting and surviving those saber-toothed tigers. So what happens when you open your textbook? Assuming you have, that is. I once had a call from someone who had an exam in only 4 days' time, who hadn't taken the cellophane wrapper off. Lastminute.com or what? Procrastination, by the way, is a great defense against failing. Again. Anyway, when faced with a huge pile of info to learn, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to do what you know. I mean, after all, it's all you've got, isn't it? And when that doesn't work, you do it even harder and harder again each time you fail. But if your strategy didn't do the job the first time or the second time, it ain't going to do it the third time, is it? Here's what most advisors do when they study. Let's see if we can identify the problem with each. You're bound to recognize yourself in one of the descriptions. You might think when studying you're going to do the right thing. It might even feel as if you're doing the right thing. But that's no consolation when you discover too late that it doesn't work. So, when most advisors sit down to study, they fall into one of these 4 camps. Camp number 1, wronger writers. The writers among us. The first camp is the people who tend to copy everything in their textbook because they're afraid of missing something important. It doesn't work. And if this is your strategy, you'll already know that too. The more you write, the more you'll forget. Not much cop for exams then. Camp number 2, nothing to reporters. Our typers. In the second camp are those of you who type up your notes on your computer or tablet. All the research demonstrates that you're using shallower processing. In other words, you're actually using less of your brain to create them. Using less of your brain makes it a lot easier to forget them. Does that sound like a good idea to you? Camp number 3, don't mind readers. These peeps in the third camp are our prolific readers. They're the folk who read and read and read and reread their textbooks over and over again. I guess many of you will know this doesn't work either. If you've ever noticed you keep reading the last paragraph over and over again, only to discover you still haven't taken in a single word, then you already know that it sends your brain to sleep. Tragically, many advisors are told to read and reread their textbook by their technical trainers. They mean well, but... Camp number 4, heavy highlighters, fans of psychedelia. Some folk grab a bunch of highlighter pens and go through their textbook, highlighting generously as they go. While they're no doubt attempting to color-code their book, when their textbook ends up looking like this, how does that help them recall any of it later? I mean, really, it's a lot of effort to go to for none of it to stick in your head. Oh, I almost forgot, there is one more group of people. Camp number 5, no-hopers. When I'm feeling more generous, I might call them the go-it-aloners. Either way, they're the ones who've tried everything else and are now desperately trying anything, such as sleeping on the job. It's said, not by me, mind you, that if you put your textbook under your pillow at night, you'll absorb all the information unconsciously. Good luck with that. Don't waste your time. And please don't waste your time on the other and more common mistakes we've just looked at. Because if indeed you do belong to any one of these camps, the best thing you can do right now is to stop camping. Because there's a better way of doing this, as you're about to discover. Want to know the secret? The secret to learning? Well, you should, because once you know this secret, your studying and your whole life will get a lot easier. The secret is that there are just 3 keys to learning, just 3 simple keys. When you know them and use them, you will have a successful learning strategy and you'll remember 80% of what you learn instead of forgetting 80%. That's the way to pass exams. And that's the way to become a true expert in your subject. So are you ready to know what those 3 keys are? Oh, and by the way, they're really simple and anyone can follow them. Anyone. especially you. Here they are, the 3 keys to learning. Think. T. N. T. And like dynamite, blast your way to exam success. Key number 1, time. You have to spend enough time with the information in the first place for your brain to make a pattern of it and send it to your long-term memory. Key number 2, notes. You need to select the right information and manipulate it for yourself. It needs to be brain-friendly, to your brain, that is. In other words, in a form your brain likes. And that's why it's no good trying to emulate someone else's study strategy. We're all different. You'd better do what your brain needs if you're the one taking the exam. Key number 3, test. Keep that information in your head by testing yourself in a deliberate and particular way. And that's all there is to it. Those are the 3 keys to learning, TNT, time, notes, test, and anyone can do it. And that's why all my clients using my system pass their exams first time and with a score of around 80%. And remember what they've learned after the exam, so it actually becomes useful knowledge. They become better at their job, and other people recognize that. So basically, you can either suffer the way your brain lets go of older information and changes that information each time you use it when it deletes, distorts, and generalizes, or you can work with it so that you develop new brain cells and strengthen the connections between them. Otherwise, your brain will continue to do what it's already been doing so effectively for you, filtering out information based on what it believes to be important in the moment. In other words, what's important to your survival. To recap, unless you pay attention to the 3 keys to learning, your brain will automatically tend to let go of older information in favor of more recent information. And so with no apology for laboring the point, 1, spend enough time with the information. 2, make brain-friendly notes. 3, test yourself on the information regularly. And that's the secret to learning anything. And by the way, I've got to tell you, here's the best bit. And as Michael Caine famously didn't say, not a lot of people know this. You only need to learn 10% of the information in your textbook. It's true. And if you could prove it, wouldn't that make your mammoth study task seem a lot less mammothy? If you can relate to even a little of what I've said on this webinar, then you're probably ready for a change. If so, I have a suggestion. Let me help you. This is my speciality, and I have different programs to suit different needs and budget. Do yourself a favor and stop wasting time, effort, and energy. Stop going round in circles and take yourself, your career, and your future seriously. Look, I can see a couple of advisors on this call who have spoken to me in the past about needing help. One of them 5 years ago, almost to the day. You're very welcome, by the way. It's good to see you, and I hope you found this event useful. But that they're on this call suggests that, like so many other advisors who believed they could get the job done on their own, a lot of time has been wasted, a lot of energy, and lost opportunity, I bet. If they'd passed each exam first time, how many of those 5 years would they have been free of the frustration and stress of exams? Not to mention the extra money they would have earned during that time. So talk to me and let me help you work out where you go from here. I've opened my calendar right up for you, but there are only so many hours in the day, and so it's first come, first served. Don't procrastinate. Don't talk yourself out of it. Smart advisors don't do anything on their own. They've got software, services, staff, shared personnel, and other resources to help them succeed. You can't do everything. No one can. So make sure you do 3 things. Immediately after this call, as soon as I give you the link, go bag yourself a time with me. I'll put it in the chat box here in Zoom, and I'll put it on the LinkedIn event page too. Follow the pre-call instructions and do the preparation work. Apart from saving us both time, you need to show me that you'll follow my instructions if we work together. And then show up to the meeting. Sort your diary out to keep that appointment. Not just out of courtesy to me, since I'm putting my time aside for you, but also because you're having booked it. No one else can have it. It's yours. You need to be there. Don't book it if you don't need it. And don't book it if you're not taking yourself and your career seriously enough to be willing to invest in getting the help you need. If you're expecting a free ride, it's just not going to happen. Not for you. Not with me, anyway. I don't know of anyone else doing what I'm doing. You can get technical training for free or very cheaply. Some of it's great, and I've worked alongside some of those trainers. But once they've given you that useful information, you've still got to make it your own. You have to manipulate it for yourself so your brain can make a pattern of it and send it to your long-term memory. And if you don't, well, you already know, don't you? Have you already booked your resit for that last exam you just took? Is your exam body perfectly happy to take yet another booking for the same exam? I wonder why. If you persist in your current strategy, or lack of one I should say, and expect to continually resit each exam, then you're playing right into their hands. If you're happy with that, please carry on. But for most advisors, that's not a box of chocolates. You need to beat them at their own game. I want you to go into the exam not familiar with the subject matter, but a master of it, knowing exactly what you have to say in order that the examiner cannot not give you full marks. That's what I want for you, and that's what you can expect when you know what you're doing. Ask any of my clients. Talking of clients, they're in the same boat as you, looking for a quicker and easier way to pass exams so they could focus on their career. Many of them had failed a number of exams a number of times each. After working with me, they've passed every exam with 80% or thereabouts and remember what they've learned forever. Okay, so you get the idea. Unfortunately, after multiple fails, it's tempting to start wondering if you will ever make the grade. But if you take nothing else away from this webinar, please remember it's not you. It's not because you're not up to the mark. It's not because there's something wrong with you. It's not because other advisors who are passing exams are better people. It's just because they have a strategy that works. Not always brilliant, perhaps, but good enough to scrape by and move on. If you're not among them, it's simply because your strategy stinks. It's what you're doing that's wrong. You can do something else. I'll show you. And when you do what your brain needs you to do, like all these other guys, your results will shoot through the roof. You'll pass every exam first time. You'll get a really impressive score. You'll move on to your next exam and the next, and in the fastest time possible, you'll get the qualifications you need. Right, let's see if you had any questions. If you think of any more now, stick them in the chat box and I'll get through as many as I can. And I'll put the link in there too for you to book a call.